Sometimes the people who save us are the ones who need saving most. The words echoed through Mercy General Hospital's empty corridor as Vincent Cruz pushed his cleaning cart past the nurses' station at 4:30 a.m. Nurse Martinez had spoken them to her colleague, but Vincent didn't slow his methodical pace. Words about saving belonged to other people, people who still believed in second chances. Vincent moved through hospital corridors like a ghost seeking redemption. His presence so subtle that staff forgot he existed until they needed something cleaned. His hands scarred from twisted metal and calloused from 4 years of manual labor gripped the mop handle with practiced efficiency. The faded gray uniform hung loose on his frame. He'd lost 30 pounds since the accident, weight that never returned along with his appetite for living. In Puerto Rico, we say lo que no mata engorda. What doesn't kill you feeds you. But Vincent had learned it could feed others too if you were brave enough to share the meal. Some people carry their pain like armor. Vincent wore his like a second skin, invisible to most, protecting nothing and healing less. Each stroke across white tiles was meditation in survival rhythm that kept his mind from wandering where laughter once lived and tiny hands once reached for his. The fluorescent lights hummed their mechanical hymn, casting harsh shadows that stretched and disappeared with each pass. His reflection appeared and vanished in polished floors, fitting metaphor for how he moved through the world, now present but not alive. Functional but empty. Vincent had perfected invisibility. Arrive before dawn, work in silence, avoid connection. He'd learned that caring cost too much, that love was a luxury he could no longer afford. Better to remain numb than risk another devastation that would finish destroying what the bus accident had left behind. But tonight felt different. As he approached the pediatric psychiatric wing, something in the air seemed heavier. Vincent had developed sensitivity to emotional temperatures, a skill born from prolonged suffering. He could sense grief, like weather changes feel it, pressing against his chest. The memory struck without warning, as these moments always did. Rush hour on a Tuesday evening 4 years ago. Vincent holding 6-year-old Isabella on his lap, while Rosa rested her head on his shoulder, Isabella humming one of her made-up songs, playing with her stuffed rabbit, trusting that Daddy would keep her safe. Rosa's warm hand in his, planning their zoo trip. The semi-truck ran the red light at 50 miles per hour. Vincent woke 3 hours later in twisted wreckage. Paramedics cutting through steel, his leg-pinned ribs broken. When he asked about Rosa and Isabella, they told him to stay still. When he screamed their names, they sedated him. 6 weeks in the hospital. A year in therapy where his hands healed wrong, losing dexterity needed for civil engineering. Lost his job. Apartment moved into the single room above the laundromat. Became a janitor because it was work that kept his body moving while his soul remained motionless. Vincent stopped outside room 418, cartwheels squeaking softly. Something made him pause. Through the partly open door, he glimpsed a small figure in white hands folded with terrible stillness. Even from this distance, Vincent sensed the quality of her silence. Not peaceful quiet, but crushing emptiness that came after hope died. His hands went cold. Those eyes, distant and searching, held the same look Isabella wore in seconds before the crash. The look of someone who'd already left, but whose body hadn't caught up. The same expression Rosa carried when doctors said there was nothing they could do for her mother. Recognition struck like lightning, recognizing its twin. 2 souls carved hollow by the same brutal sculptor. Vincent turned away, resuming mechanical cleaning. He had rules about emotional involvement, boundaries that kept him functional. Other people's tragedies weren't his responsibility. He had enough ghosts. But as he moved down the hallway, he couldn't stop thinking about those eyes. Whatever had broken that child was the same force that shattered him, and somewhere in protected spaces of his heart. Muscle memory stirred. Vincent remembered Isabella's last hospital visit for asthma treatment, how he'd folded paper animals to distract her from breathing treatments she hated. His fingers had once been skilled at creation, turning flat sheets into three-dimensional miracles that made his daughter laugh with delight. "Look, Daddy," Isabella had squealed, as his paper crane seemed to fly. "You made magic before the accident took everything, including his ability to believe in small magic." He finished his shift without looking back, but the image followed him home. As Vincent sat on his narrow bed staring at the photograph of Rosa and Isabella at the park, he whispered to the silence, "I met someone today who has your eyes, Isabella. I don't know what to do with that." The photograph offered no answers, just echoes of laughter that would never return, and the weight of a father's failure to protect what mattered most. But for the first time in 4 years, his hands moved unconsciously through familiar motions. Fold, crease, turn, as if muscle memory was awakening from its long hibernation. Before tragedy rewrote her universe, 8-year-old Sophia Chen had lived where love came in bedtime stories with character voices and Saturday pancakes shaped like stars. Thomas Morrison read to her every night from the leather chair beside her canopy bed, his voice becoming dragons and princess and brave knights who always saved the day. Thomas had a gift for transforming ordinary moments into magic. Grocery shopping became treasure hunts. Car rides turned into singing competitions. Their Friday movie nights were sacred. Popcorn on the floor. Sophia choosing films, both parents pretending they hadn't seen her selections dozens of times. "Why do people cry happy tears?" Daddy Sophia had asked one evening as they watched stars appear through floor-to-ceiling windows. "Because sometimes joy is so big, it has to overflow," Thomas explained, pulling her close. "Like when Mommy and I first saw you. We cried because we couldn't hold all that love inside. Catherine built quantum computing empires, but Thomas built dreams. He taught Sophia to question everything. Find wonder in details. Believe every problem had a solution with enough creativity and patience. Weekend beach trips became ocean science lessons. Cooking experiments transformed into chemistry classes. Garden walks became biology discoveries. Sophia adored both parents differently. Catherine for her brilliant mind and determination, Thomas for his gentle heart and endless availability. She'd inherited Catherine's analytical thinking and Thomas's emotional intelligence, creating fusion of logic and compassion that amazed teachers. The day everything changed started like any Tuesday. Thomas picked Sophia up from ballet class in Catherine's Tesla Rain, dotting the windshield as they drove through downtown traffic. Sophia chatted about recital preparation, while Thomas listened with focused attention that made her feel like the most important person in the world. "Will you help me practice pirouettes when we get home?" she asked. "Of course, sweetheart. But you'll have to teach me." I still can't tell the difference between a pirouette and a plie. The drunk driver ran the red light at 60 miles per hour, his pickup slamming into the Tesla with wrecking ball force. Time fragmented into terrible slow motion. Glass exploding inward like deadly snow, the car spinning across the intersection, Thomas's body thrown against his door with a sound Sophia would hear in nightmares forever. When spinning stopped, silence filled spaces where laughter used to live. Thomas was motionless, his head bent at impossible angles, blood seeping across Italian leather. Sophia, protected by safety engineering and restraint laws, was physically unharmed but emotionally destroyed. She sat trapped, holding her stuffed white rabbit, Thomas's gift for her 6th birthday, watching her father's blood spread in patterns she didn't understand. People shouted outside, sirens wailed, but Sophia remained perfectly quiet, as if moving might break something else precious. Paramedics extracted her 23 minutes later. She never spoke about those 23 minutes, but something fundamental died in that intersection. Her voice, her trust, her belief that daddies could protect little girls from monsters. 9 months later, Sophia sat in room 418 of Mercy General's private psychiatric wing, wearing a white designer dress that cost more than most monthly salaries. Catherine had hired every specialist imaginable. Dr. Patricia Williams from Harvard, Dr. Samuel Klein from Switzerland, Dr. Rebecca Torres from Johns Hopkins. 7 professionals quit, each taking pieces of Catherine's hope. Sophia had become a porcelain doll in a glass case, priceless, untouchable, slowly cracking from inside. She stared through bulletproof glass at the courtyard where other children occasionally played. Her rabbit never left her hands, constant reminder of the moment when everything safe became dangerous. The room reflected Catherine's desperate attempts to recreate home within institutional walls. Designer furniture, original artwork, fresh flowers replaced daily. On her windowsill sat origami animals left by various therapists. Failed attempts to reach her through art therapy, each perfectly folded but emotionally empty. Sophia arranged these paper creatures in precise lines by color-size complexity, creating order in a universe that had proven fundamentally chaotic. She touched each before sleeping, counting like prayer beads, but they offered no comfort because they carried no love from their creators. Sometimes nurses paused in her doorway, drawn by tragedy of such stillness in someone so young. They whispered about the billionaire's daughter who wouldn't speak, the child who had everything money could buy, but nothing her heart needed. "She's been like this 9 months, Nurse Martinez explained to new staff. "Mother's tried everything. Specialists worldwide, experimental treatments, that clinic in Germany. Nothing works." What they couldn't see was how Sophia's silence had become both prison and protection. Speaking required hope. Hope required trust, and trust required believing the world wouldn't shatter again the moment she opened her heart. Better to remain safely empty than risk destruction by caring. But late at night, when the hospital grew quiet, Sophia whispered to her rabbit the same question she'd asked Thomas on their last ride. "Why do people cry sad tears, Daddy? And why won't mine stop coming when I'm alone?" The rabbit, like everything in her controlled world, offered no answers, only echoes of a voice that would never respond again. Yet somewhere in her protected heart, she waited for magic that felt real, instead of prescribed, for someone who understood that broken didn't mean worthless, just changed into something that might still be beautiful. At 4 a.m., Catherine Chen Morrison stood before floor-to-ceiling windows in her penthouse office, watching the city sleep, while her quantum computing empire hummed with global activity. The irony wasn't lost that she could process infinite data points, but couldn't decode 9 months of her daughter's silence. Her desk held evidence of triumph and failure. Patents worth hundreds of millions, acquisition offers from tech giants, medical reports, describing Sophia's condition in clinical language that felt like reading about a stranger. Dr. Williams' latest assessment lay open. Patient continues exhibiting selective mutism. Recommend extended residential treatment. Extended residential treatment meant admitting defeat, sending Sophia away while Catherine continued building her empire on increasingly meaningless foundations. Catherine's journey began 26 years ago when she arrived in America at 12, speaking broken English and carrying dreams bigger than her parents' modest expectations. MIT offered full scholarship at 16. Graduate school introduced her to Thomas Morrison, whose emotional intelligence perfectly complemented her analytical mind. Technosphere Industries started in their garage with borrowed equipment and unlimited ambition. Catherine handled technical innovations while Thomas managed relationships and strategy. Their first breakthrough was quantum encryption algorithms that revolutionized data security. By their 5th anniversary, they'd built a billion-dollar empire. Sophia arrived on a Sunday morning after 36 hours of labor. Thomas held their daughter, first tears streaming, as he whispered promises about the world they would build for her. "She's going to change everything," he said, placing Sophia in Catherine's arms. "She already has," Catherine replied, understanding for the first time that love could be both logical and magical. Their marriage thrived on complementary strengths. Catherine provided stability and resources. Thomas offered creativity and emotional depth. They shared responsibilities with engineering precision. Catherine handling finances and strategy. Thomas managing daily care and creative activities. Until the night everything fell apart. Catherine replayed their final argument with obsessive precision. Tuesday evening, February 15th, 8:47 p.m. Thomas wanted family dinner. Catherine had emergency conference call with Tokyo partners about a merger worth $2.8 billion. The conversation lasted 14 minutes, ending with Thomas taking Sophia to dinner while Catherine chose business over presents. This deal could secure Sophia's future, Catherine had insisted. "Sophia needs her mother now, not more money for her future," Thomas replied. "One night won't matter. Every night matters." Thomas left for dinner. Catherine joined the video call that would make her company billions more. 23 minutes later, her assistant knocked with news that made future wealth meaningless. Now Catherine's routine consisted of commanding international conferences by day and begging her daughter to eat soup by night. She addressed rooms of investors who hung on every word, then sat helplessly beside Sophia's hospital bed, powerless to inspire even a syllable. Power means nothing if you can't protect what matters most. Her assistant Maria had observed during a particularly difficult day. Catherine initially dismissed this as emotional oversimplification, but found herself returning to those words during sleepless nights when logic offered no comfort. The guilt consumed her more effectively than cancer. While Thomas died protecting their daughter, Catherine calculated profit margins. While Sophia witnessed her father's death, Catherine negotiated contracts that would never matter as much as the family dinners she'd missed for various business emergencies. Catherine understood now why Sophia refused to speak. Words had failed them both that night. Catherine chose wrong words in their final argument, and Sophia was given no words to process what she'd witnessed. Language itself had become the enemy of connection. Vincent Cruz appeared in Catherine's peripheral vision as she reviewed medical reports in Sophia's room. He moved through the hospital like a shadow emptying waste bins with methodical efficiency, while remaining invisible to most staff. Catherine noticed him because she'd developed heightened awareness of everyone entering Sophia's environment. When Vincent accidentally dropped something, Catherine watched him retrieve it with careful movements, suggesting physical limitations. His uniform was clean, but worn, his demeanor professional, but distant. She'd never spoken to him, never thought of him as more than hospital infrastructure, but something about his presence felt different. Vincent paused near Sophia's bed, his eyes briefly meeting her daughter's gaze before looking away. In that moment, Catherine witnessed something she hadn't seen in months, Sophia's slight shift toward attention, rather than away from it. Catherine dropped her business card while gathering papers. Vincent picked it up, read her name. Recognition flickering across his features, before handing it back with a slight nod. "Thank you," Catherine said, studying his face more carefully. Of course, Ms. Chen. Vincent replied, his voice carrying an accent that spoke of different origins and hard-won survival. Something in his tone suggested familiarity with loss, as if he recognized grief the way others recognized weather patterns. Catherine filed this impression with analytical precision, not yet understanding that some connections transcend logic and operate on frequencies that broken hearts recognize instinctively. As Vincent disappeared into the hallway with his cart, Catherine returned to medical reports offering no hope and business projections providing no comfort. But for the first time in months, she'd witnessed her daughter respond to human presence. A microscopic shift that felt like the first crack in an ice age. Her empire could process billions of calculations, but it couldn't decode the simple equation of human connection that might save her daughter's voice and her own shattered heart. Vincent's morning routine had become a ritual of survival, each action performed with mechanical precision by someone who'd learned that structure was the only thing standing between function and collapse. Arriving at Mercy General at 5 a.m., he prepared cleaning supplies in the basement, where fluorescent lights buzzed like mechanical insects. Vincent's hands had once built bridges that could withstand earthquakes. Now they cleaned floors that witnessed countless tears. The pediatric wing held different quality of silence. Heavier, more desperate, filled with weight of small tragedies and large hopes. Vincent had developed sensitivity to these atmospheric pressures, his own prolonged suffering, creating emotional sonar that detected pain with uncomfortable accuracy. But this morning felt different as he approached room 418. Something had shifted like the moment before lightning, when birds go quiet and atmosphere holds its breath. Vincent paused outside Sophia's door, fighting urge to look inside. He'd spent 4 years perfecting emotional detachment, learning to move without engaging, without caring, without allowing touch by others' suffering. Involvement meant vulnerability, and vulnerability led to devastating loss he'd barely survived once. Yet something compelled him to glance through the doorway. What he saw stopped his progress cold. Sophia sat in her window chair wearing the same white dress, but her posture held resigned desperation Vincent recognized with terrible clarity. Her small hands gripped the stuffed rabbit with intensity of someone drowning, holding the only thing that felt real. Sophia's silence was not empty. It was full of words too dangerous to speak. Love too precious to risk breaking again. Recognition struck like lightning, recognizing its twin. 2 souls carved hollow by the same brutal sculptor. The way Sophia stared through bulletproof glass with empty eyes was identical to Isabella's final look that moment when his daughter realized Daddy couldn't protect her. Vincent's hands began trembling as muscle memory surfaced. Isabella's last hospital stay for asthma treatment, how he'd folded paper animals to distract her from breathing treatments that scared her. His fingers had once been skilled at creation capable of transforming flat sheets into 3-dimensional miracles. "Look, Daddy!" Isabella had squealed as his paper crane seemed to fly. "You made magic." Vincent had believed in magic then, in small miracles, and Father's ability to fix anything broken. Before the accident taught him that some things shatter beyond repair, that love offers no protection against drunk drivers and random cruelty. Every instinct screamed at him to walk away, to continue cleaning, and forget what he'd seen. Caring had killed him once, left him hollow and functional, but not I. Better to remain numb, untouchable, safe in protective shell of indifference. But Sophia's eyes held Isabella's final look. That terrible resignation when hope dies before the body does. And Vincent found himself unable to move past her doorway. Vincent made his way to the supply closet during break, hands moving of their own accord through construction paper and office supplies. His fingers found yellow paper, and without conscious decision, he began folding. The motions came back slowly then with increasing fluidity as muscle memory overrode resistance. Fold, crease, turn. The meditative rhythm that once brought peace when Isabella couldn't sleep, when Rosa worked double shifts, when life felt overwhelming but manageable. Each fold was intentional, each crease deliberate, transforming something flat into dimensional meaning. The Japanese say we fold 1,000 cranes for one wish. Vincent learned that sometimes one crane is enough to fold 1,000 hearts back together. The crane emerged imperfect but complete wings, slightly uneven in ways that marked human creation rather than machine precision. Vincent sat in the break room staring at the small miracle he'd created. First beautiful thing he'd made since the accident destroyed his ability to believe in magic. The windowsill held origami animals from previous therapists. Technically perfect, but emotionally sterile creations that had failed to reach through Sophia's protective silence. Vincent placed his crane among them, then stepped back immediately, questioning his decision. When Sophia returned from therapy, Vincent was mopping floors 2 hallways away. But somehow he knew the moment she discovered his gift. Some invisible thread connected their mutual recognition of loss, and he felt her surprise like an echo in his chest. Sophia approached her windowsill with careful movements of someone who'd learned beautiful things often hide dangerous edges. The new crane sat among therapeutic origami, but something about its imperfect wings marked it as different. She lifted it with reverent fingers, holding it to light filtering through bulletproof glass. Unlike clinical perfection of previous offerings, this crane carried subtle imperfections that spoke of real hands making real choices, of someone taking time to create beauty without being paid to care. For the first time in 9 months, something penetrated Sophia's emotional armor. Not the crane itself, but intention behind it. Recognition that someone had seen her suffering and chosen to respond with gentleness rather than analysis, beauty rather than treatment. She traced each fold with her fingertip, understanding instinctively that whoever made this had folded paper before, probably for someone they loved. The crane's imperfections became perfections, proof it was created by human hands that carried their own stories of loss and hope. That night, as Vincent sat in his single room, staring at photographs of Rosa and Isabella, he whispered to their memory, "I made something today. For the first time since you left, I made something beautiful instead of just surviving. I think you would have liked her, the little girl I made it for." The photographs offered no response, but somehow silence felt less crushing, as if small acts of creation could bridge distance between living and gone, between broken and healing. Sophia discovered the paper crane during the grey hour before dawn, when insomnia felt most acute. Sleep had become a foreign country she could no longer visit. Every time she closed her eyes, she returned to that intersection where glass exploded and Daddy stopped breathing. The crane sat among therapeutic origami like a secret message written in language she was beginning to understand. Unlike clinical perfection of previous offerings, this creation carried imperfections that spoke of real hands making real choices, of someone taking time to fold beauty without being required to care. For the first time in 9 months, something penetrated the emotional armor she'd built around her heart. Not therapy or medication or expensive specialists, but this simple gesture that asked nothing in return, expected no response, demanded no healing, just offered beauty for beauty's sake. Vincent returned the next morning carrying a turtle folded from green construction paper. His hands worked from memory as he created careful pleats and precise folds. Each motion, meditation on possibility that small acts of kindness might matter in an indifferent universe. Inside the turtle's shell, he wrote, "Some journeys require patience, but every step forward counts." He placed the turtle beside the crane on Sophia's windowsill, then disappeared before cameras could document his unauthorized therapeutic interventions. When Sophia returned from her session with Dr. Williams, another hour of gentle probing that produced no responses, she approached her windowsill with growing anticipation rather than dutiful obligation. The green turtle sat beside her crane like a friend joining conversation, and for the first time since the accident, Sophia felt curiosity rather than dread. She unfolded the turtle carefully, reading the hidden message with eyes that had forgotten how to expect kindness from strangers. Someone was speaking to her in language that bypassed words, communicating through creation rather than interrogation. That afternoon, instead of staring blankly through her window, Sophia began arranging her growing collection in different configurations, first by color, then by size, then by stories they seemed to tell when placed together. The crane and turtle became central figures in elaborate narratives she constructed silently. Vincent's third creation was a butterfly, folded from yellow paper wings, delicate enough to flutter with each breath of air conditioning. Inside one wing, change comes when you're ready to fly, not when the world decides you should. By the fourth day, Vincent had developed a routine of creation that felt like prayer. Each morning before his shift ended, he'd sit in the janitor's break room and fold something new. A frog with message. Even the smallest voice can cross the biggest pond. A flower that bloomed when unfolded. A boat with safe harbor exists even when seas feel stormy. Sophia began anticipating these gifts with intensity that surprised her. She would wake before dawn to check her windowsill, heart beating faster as she discovered each creation. The paper animals were becoming more than decorations. They were breadcrumbs leading back toward possibility of connection. The broken places are where the light gets in, Vincent had written inside a star he'd folded from silver paper. On the seventh day, Vincent folded a swan with particular care, neck curved in classical elegance, wings spread wide enough to suggest flight. Inside one wing, he wrote the message that had taken 6 days to find courage to share. You are not alone. 3 simple words that carried weight of recognition between kindred spirits, between two people who understood that deepest wounds were often invisible and healing required witnesses who'd walked through similar darkness. Sophia discovered the swan during afternoon quiet time, unfolding it with trembling fingers that had forgotten how to hope. The message hit her like rainfall on desert ground. Not just the words, but recognition that someone understood her isolation and chose to bridge it through creation rather than conversation. For the first time since her father's death, tears came not from grief, but from gratitude. Someone was speaking her father's language of patient love, offering gifts without expecting anything in return, creating beauty for the simple reason that beauty had power to heal what words couldn't reach. She refolded the swan carefully, pressing it against her chest as she sat by her window, watching clouds move across afternoon sky. Something in her posture softened, shoulders dropping, breathing slowing, terrible tension that had held her rigid for 9 months beginning to ease. A nurse passing in the hallway noticed the change, immediately stopping to observe Sophia sitting closer to the window. Closer to light, her silence transformed from desperate emptiness into contemplative peace. Catherine Chen Morrison had built her empire on information, surveillance networks that monitored global markets with microscopic precision. Yet she'd missed the most important pattern developing under her supervision until her security team brought footage that would change everything. The timestamp read 3:47 a.m. when an unidentified figure entered room 418 with purposeful movements that violated hospital protocols. Catherine studied the monitor with intensity she applied to merger negotiations. The man wore a janitor's uniform, moved with careful efficiency, spent exactly 17 seconds placing something on Sophia's windowsill before disappearing. Mid-40s, Hispanic features, dark circles, suggesting prolonged insomnia or grief stubble, speaking of someone who'd stopped caring about professional appearance. I want his employee file, Catherine told her assistant. Vincent Cruz, custodial staff. Previous employment, county civil engineering, terminated due to medical leave following family tragedy. Current address, single room above Fernandez Laundromat. Catherine realized this man had accomplished what her Harvard-trained specialists couldn't. He'd reached her daughter through 9 months of impenetrable silence. The next morning, Catherine arrived to find unexpected activity in room 418. Sophia stood at her doorway. Actually stood something Catherine hadn't witnessed since the funeral week. She's been standing there 20 minutes, Nurse Martinez whispered, watching the hallway like she's waiting for someone. Catherine positioned herself where she could observe, without interfering, every maternal instinct screaming to intervene, while her analytical mind recognized this existed outside her control. Vincent appeared at the corridor's end, pushing his cleaning cart with mechanical efficiency. But today, Sophia responded with visible animation. Straightening her posture, stepping into the hallway, holding something with careful reverence. Catherine watched her daughter approach a janitor she'd never officially met, carrying herself with more purpose than she'd shown in 9 months of expensive therapy. Mr. The word emerged like a prayer spoken in a forgotten language, her voice small and rusty but clear enough to carry across the sterile hallway. Vincent froze, gripping the mop handle as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. Water dripped onto polished floor while he stared at this small girl who'd found courage to speak when speaking seemed impossible. "Thank you," Sophia said, her voice gaining strength with each syllable, holding out the paper swan. Vincent set down the watering can with trembling hands, kneeling to her eye level without reaching for her or invading the careful space she'd constructed around herself. "You're welcome, Vincent," replied his voice thick with emotions Catherine couldn't fully interpret. "Did you like the stories they told you?" Sophia nodded. First voluntary communication Catherine had witnessed since the accident. "They told me I wasn't alone. Were you alone before you made them?" Vincent's composure cracked visibly, tears gathering in eyes that clearly carried their own stories of loss. "Yes. I was alone for a very long time. Making them helped me remember that loneliness doesn't have to be permanent." "Will you make more?" Sophia asked with direct honesty. "Children use when hope feels fragile, but possible." "As many as you need," Vincent promised, and Catherine heard in his voice the same tone Thomas used when promising bedtime stories. The sound of someone who understood that small commitments could anchor entire worlds. "When Daddy died, words felt like glass in my throat. Your cranes taught me that some things can be said without bleeding." Catherine stepped out of concealment, approaching Vincent with measured caution. This man had accomplished what specialists couldn't, reached her daughter through methods outside medical training or therapeutic protocols. "Mr. Cruz," she said, using his name to establish she knew more about him than he might expect. Vincent stood slowly, expression shifting from wonder to apprehension as he recognized Catherine from newspaper photos. "Ms. Chen," he replied carefully. "I didn't mean to overstep. You made her speak." Catherine interrupted her analytical composure, cracking under weight of maternal gratitude mixed with desperate hope. "My daughter hasn't said a word in 9 months, and then you fold her paper animals, and suddenly she's having conversations." "I just folded paper," he said quietly. "She did the brave part." Why, Catherine asked, the single word carrying 9 months of desperate questions. Why did you care? Why risk your job? Why see what 7 specialists missed? Vincent was quiet for a long moment, his gaze moving toward Sophia's room, where she was visible arranging origami animals with careful attention. "I lost my daughter 4 years ago," he said finally, voice carrying particular flatness that comes from speaking unspeakable truths. "Your daughter has the same look, like she's already gone, watching the world from somewhere else. I know that look. I see it every time I close my eyes." Catherine felt something crack open inside her chest. Here was someone who understood her daughter's suffering through lived experience with the same brutal reality that had stolen Sophia's voice. "I lost my husband 8 months ago," she admitted. "He died in front of her. She watched it happen and hasn't spoken since." They stood in silence, 2 parents who'd failed to protect their children from random cruelty, recognizing each other across vast distance that separated billionaire CEO from hospital janitor, yet finding common ground in geography of grief. "What do we do now?" Catherine asked, her voice smaller than it had been. been in years stripped of authority that commanded international conferences. We help her remember that speaking doesn't always bring more pain. Vincent replied, we show her that some words can be trusted to carry love instead of loss. For the first time since Thomas died, Catherine felt like someone understood not just her daughter's suffering, but her own helplessness in the face of trauma that existed beyond reach of money or influence or technological innovation. Catherine Chen Morrison had built her fortune on information warfare, analyzing market patterns, understanding motivations better than people understood themselves. But her investigation of Vincent Cruz felt different, driven by maternal desperation rather than business advantage. The private detective's report arrived at 6 a.m. Vincent Eduardo Cruz, age 45, former senior civil engineer for county infrastructure development. Married Rosa Santos Cruz, registered nurse. One daughter, Isabella Rosa Cruz, age 6, died alongside mother in bus accident 4 years prior. Employment history showed meteoric rise followed by catastrophic fall. Vincent had designed bridge supports, earned commendations for earthquake safety innovations. Then came medical leave, following family tragedy extended absence termination when grief made return to engineering impossible. Financial records painted familiar arc of tragedy's aftermath. Insurance consumed by medical bills, savings depleted during unemployment, credit destroyed. Current address, single room, $400 monthly rent, shared bathroom, hot plate for cooking. Catherine closed the laptop, staring through penthouse windows at the city where Vincent survived in circumstances that would have seemed impossible during her privileged childhood. Yet this man who owned nothing had given her daughter something she couldn't purchase with billions. First words Sophia had spoken since witnessing her father die. Catherine found Vincent in the hospital cafeteria during his break, sitting alone with thermos of coffee and sandwich wrapped in paper. He ate with mechanical efficiency of someone for whom food was fuel rather than pleasure. "May I sit?" Catherine asked. Vincent looked up, recognition flickering across features, carrying particular exhaustion of someone who'd survived more than expected to endure. He nodded. "I know about your family," Catherine said directly. "The accident, the loss, what you went through. I'm sorry." Vincent's hands stilled. "You investigated me," he said. Statement rather than question tone, carrying neither surprise nor resentment. "I needed to understand how a janitor accomplished what Harvard specialists couldn't." "What did you find?" "Someone who understands her pain because you carry your own. Someone who lost everything but chose to help anyway." Vincent studied her face with careful attention of someone who'd learned to read motivations for survival rather than social nicety. "I didn't plan to get involved. I've spent 4 years learning to survive without caring. Caring almost killed me once." What changed? She reminded me of Isabella. Not her appearance, her eyes. The way she sits with emptiness like it's the only safe place left. Catherine felt something crack open. "You saw yourself in her suffering. I saw what grief does to children when adults don't know how to help. Someone drowning the way I'd been drowning, except she's 8 and deserves better than learning to survive underwater." Why Origami Vincent's expression softened memories surfacing with pain and tenderness. Isabella had asthma. Hospital visits terrified her. I learned to fold paper animals during treatments. Distraction became tradition. She called them magic because flat paper turned into flying creatures. He paused, hands unconsciously mimicking folding motions. "After the accident, I couldn't make anything beautiful. Folding that first crane for Sophia was like remembering how to breathe, terrifying but necessary." "You weren't trying to fix her," Catherine realized. "You were sharing your healing process. Broken people recognize each other. Sometimes we can help each other remember that broken doesn't mean worthless, just changed. Some people think healing means going back to who you were before tragedy struck. But healing isn't about returning. It's about becoming someone new who can carry love forward instead of carrying only grief. "What do you want from us?" Catherine asked the question, carrying 9 months of protective instincts and desperate hope. Vincent looked surprised. "Nothing. Everything. Nothing material, everything emotional. I want to remember how to care without drowning. I want to help her remember that speaking doesn't always bring more pain. You want to heal alongside her. I want us both to learn that survival and living aren't the same thing." Catherine studied his face, seeing past the custodial uniform to the engineer who'd once designed structures that protected people from earthquakes and floods. Someone who understood building things to last. "Have dinner with us," Catherine heard herself saying. Not as a CEO and a janitor, but as two people learning how to breathe again. Vincent's hesitation was visible. Comfort with invisibility warring against possibility of connection that might lead to more loss. "Sophia would like that," Catherine added. "She's been asking about you. Not directly, but in the way children ask about things they care about, without wanting to seem needy." "Tomorrow night," Vincent said, quietly accepting an invitation that felt like stepping off a cliff, while trusting someone would teach him how to fly. The elevator ride to Catherine's penthouse felt like ascending into another universe, as Vincent watched floor numbers climb past his annual salary. His reflection in polished steel showed someone desperately out of place. Work boots scuffed from hospital floors, discount store shirt hands that no soap could completely soften. Sophia answered the door herself, her face lighting with genuine pleasure. She wore yellow instead of her usual white, suggesting emotional progress that filled Catherine with cautious hope. "You came?" Sophia said, voice still carrying rusty quality, but gaining strength. "I promised I would," Vincent replied, kneeling to her eye level. "Thank you for inviting me to your home." The penthouse overwhelmed Vincent. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking city lights, modern art, costing more than he'd earned in his engineering career. Yet Sophia moved through this palace with casual familiarity. "I asked Mom to order pizza," Sophia announced matter-of-factly. "Fancy food makes my stomach nervous, but pizza makes everything better." Catherine appeared carrying boxes from Antonio's pizzeria instead of five-star catering. Vincent realized this represented intentional bridge building, Catherine choosing connection over impression. They sat around elegant table eating pizza from paper plates, contrast highlighting how healing sometimes required abandoning sophistication for simplicity. Vincent found himself relaxing as Sophia chatted about origami animals, describing elaborate stories about their adventures. "The crane is the leader because he flies highest," Sophia explained, using hands to demonstrate patterns above pizza slices. "The turtle is wisest because she's seen everything from ground level. The butterfly brings news from flower gardens." Vincent listened with focused attention. He'd once given engineering blueprints, understanding that Sophia's narratives revealed her internal healing process. Each story showed increased complexity and hope. "Will you teach me harder patterns?" Sophia asked. "What would you like to learn?" "Something beautiful that takes patience, something that can't be rushed." Vincent spent the evening teaching Sophia to fold a lotus flower. 12-step process requiring precision and persistence. Catherine watched from beside them, seeing her daughter's face animated with curiosity and determination, absent since Thomas died. "Daddy used to help me with hard puzzles," Sophia mentioned, while struggling with difficult fold. "He said patience was a superpower that made impossible things possible." "Your father sounds like he was very wise," Vincent said carefully. "He was. He would have liked you. You both believe in making beautiful things from ordinary materials." Catherine felt tears threaten as she witnessed Sophia speaking about Thomas with affection, rather than trauma memory becoming celebration, rather than devastation. That night, Catherine insisted on seeing where Vincent lived, driving through neighborhoods her security team typically advised avoiding. Vincent's embarrassment was visible as they climbed stairs to his single room. The contrast was stark. Vincent's entire space would fit inside Catherine's closet. Hot plate, narrow bed, small table, holding photographs as only decoration. Yet Sophia entered with reverence rather than pity. "They're beautiful," Sophia said, touching the frame holding Vincent's family photograph. "Your daughter has kind eyes like yours. Your wife looks like she gives really good hugs." "Isabella would have liked you," Vincent managed. "She believed in magic the same way you're learning to believe again." "Maybe they're friends now," Sophia suggested with matter-of-fact spirituality. "Children possess. Maybe Isabella and Daddy are teaching each other how to fold clouds while they wait for us to finish learning how to be happy again." Catherine wiped her eyes as she listened to her daughter transform grief into hope, death into continuing connection, loss into love that transcended physical presence. Vincent's expansion into architectural origami began when Sophia's growing confidence inspired him to remember engineering principles that had once earned commendations for structural design. Their evening sessions in Catherine's dining room had become sacred ritual. 3 people learning to fold patience into beauty. "I want to make a house," Sophia announced one evening. "A house where families who lost people can come to remember being happy." Vincent felt his chest tighten with recognition. Isabella had expressed similar desires during hospital stays, wanting to design buildings where sick children could heal. His daughter's architectural dreams had died with her, but Sophia's request awakened dormant skills. "Houses require strong foundations," Vincent explained, spreading larger paper across Catherine's mahogany table. "Like people, they need solid structures before they can grow tall and beautiful." He began teaching modular construction, individual rooms connecting into larger structures, each piece requiring precision but contributing to magnificent wholes that exceeded individual components. The process demanded mathematical thinking combined with aesthetic vision. "Each fold is a choice," Vincent explained as Sophia struggled with challenging corner joint. "Every crease has purpose, every angle affects stability. You're not just making a house, you're creating something that could shelter other people's dreams." Catherine watched amazed by transformation in both her daughter and their unlikely teacher. Sophia asked questions revealing inherited brilliance, inquiring about load-bearing walls and foundation depth, understanding that beauty without structure collapsed under pressure. Each folded creation became prayer, small rebellion against chaos, proof that broken things could be made beautiful through patient transformation. Vincent's hands, scarred and calloused, moved with increasing confidence as muscle memory awakened. "Why did you become an engineer?" Sophia asked while constructing elaborate pagoda. Vincent paused, memories surfacing with pain and pride. "I wanted to build things that protected people, bridges that wouldn't fall during earthquakes, buildings that could withstand floods, structures that kept families safe when nature tried to hurt them." "Like my daddy's car was supposed to keep us safe," Sophia said with direct honesty. "Yes. I learned we can't control everything dangerous, but we can build things that help people survive and heal afterward." Catherine joined their lessons with intensity. She applied to corporate acquisitions, her CEO fingers learning patience, through paper manipulation while discovering meditation in mindful construction. "This is harder than running board meetings," Catherine admitted after struggling with bridge instructions. "Different kind of pressure," Vincent replied. "Board meetings hurt your reputation if you fail. This only hurts your expectations." Their paper cities grew elaborate as Sophia's skills advanced and Vincent's teaching confidence returned. Pagodas with multiple levels, bridges spanning imaginary rivers, entire neighborhoods where paper families could live and heal. "Every building needs purpose," Vincent explained as they planned their most ambitious project. What do you want people to feel when they see your creation? Hope Sophia replied without hesitation. I want them to feel like broken doesn't mean worthless, just changed into something that might be beautiful. Vincent's hand stilled as his words returned through her interpretation, understanding that teaching had become mutual exchange. Sophia was processing his philosophy through her experience, creating wisdom that transcended individual pain. They worked 3 hours on Sophia's healing center, constructing modular units that could accommodate growing communities while maintaining intimate spaces for reflection. Vincent contributed engineering expertise, while Sophia provided aesthetic vision, Catherine offering organizational strategy. The finished complex covered most of the dining table. Interconnected buildings with courtyards for gathering and gardens for contemplation, bridges connecting different areas like relationships linking separate healing journeys. It's complete, Vincent corrected when Catherine called it perfect. Perfect suggests nothing could be improved, but this can always grow larger, accommodate more people, adapt to changing needs. Like healing, not about reaching perfect, just becoming whole enough to help others. As they transported paper buildings to Sophia's room, Catherine realized they had built something more significant than architectural models. They had constructed foundation for their own unconventional family. 3 people learning that creation could emerge from destruction, that patience could transform loss into love. Dr. Patricia Williams had built her reputation on unwavering protocol adherence, transforming Mercy General's psychiatric department into a model of evidence-based treatment. The security footage on her desk challenged every principle she'd spent decades defending. Timestamp after timestamp showed Vincent Cruz entering room 418, placing objects on Sophia's windowsill, engaging in therapeutic contact without supervision. Each violation represented potential liability that could destroy her department's reputation. This is unacceptable, Dr. Williams announced to assembled staff. A custodial worker has been conducting unauthorized therapeutic interventions with one of our most vulnerable patients. The conference room held 15 medical professionals whose combined expertise represented hundreds of thousands in specialized training. Yet none had achieved what a janitor accomplished through paper folding. The patient has been improving, Dr. Martinez observed cautiously. Sophia is speaking engaging, showing progress we hadn't seen through conventional approaches. That is not the point, Dr. Williams replied sharply. We have procedures. Protocols exist to protect patients from unqualified individuals who might cause psychological damage despite good intentions. What if the interaction is genuinely helping? Dr. Martinez pressed. Our objective is first, do no harm. Dr. Williams corrected. This man has no credentials, no training, no understanding of childhood trauma protocols. He could trigger regression, cause setbacks, or create dependency that interferes with legitimate treatment. But he's helping her. Nurse Rodriguez interjected. Sophia speaks to him. She smiles. She's eating without prompting. Dr. Williams leaned forward. Compassion does not override regulation. If something goes wrong, if this man triggers a traumatic episode or creates psychological harm, this hospital faces lawsuits that could bankrupt our program. Dr. Wright cleared his throat, calculating risks beyond medical outcomes. The mother specifically requested we allow the interaction to continue. She's threatened to withdraw funding if we interfere. The mother does not make hospital policy, Dr. Williams replied. I do. Mr. Cruz is banned from the 4th floor immediately, complete separation until we assess potential damage. The room fell silent as professionals processed collision between regulatory compliance and patient improvement, between institutional protection and individual healing. Effective immediately, Vincent Cruz is restricted from all patient areas. We return to standard protocols. No further discussion. The leak came from inside Mercy General, a disgruntled employee who sold the story for $3,000. By Thursday morning, Vincent Cruz's photograph appeared on television screens across the metropolitan area, his private tragedy becoming public consumption. Dangerous precedent. Unqualified janitor treats billionaire's daughter dominated morning news, followed by expert panels debating ethics while displaying Vincent's employee photo beside Mercy General's prestigious facility. Vincent learned about unwanted celebrity when Mrs. Fernandez knocked at 6 a.m., pointing toward television vans that had materialized overnight. "They're asking questions about you," she said in Spanish. "Reporters with cameras wanting to know about your family, your work, your relationship with the rich lady." The media narrative split along predictable lines. Conservative outlets framed it as dangerous precedent, where hospitals allowed unvetted employees to practice unauthorized therapy. Liberal commentators focused on economic inequality, suggesting discrimination prevented working-class wisdom from reaching privileged patients. Social media exploded with Janitorgate, generating thousands of posts that reduced nuanced human experiences to hashtag debates and viral content. "This is boundary violation that destroys institutional trust," declared Dr. Hassan during CNN panel discussion. "Hospitals must maintain clear protocols to protect vulnerable patients." But traditional approaches weren't working. Countered Dr. Torres. "If this man helped a traumatized child speak, shouldn't we examine why conventional therapy failed, where human connection succeeded?" Catherine received calls from board members and PR specialists who advised damage control strategies. Technosphere's stock fluctuated based on speculation about their CEO's judgment. "This reflects poorly on the institution," warned Mercy General's board chair during emergency meeting. "We need to distance ourselves before it damages our reputation." Catherine stood before 8 men who controlled policies affecting thousands, but had never sat beside a traumatized child, learning trust through paper animals. "My daughter spoke for the first time in 8 months because of him," Catherine said. "Your protocols failed, your specialists quit, but a janitor with paper accomplished what your expertise couldn't." "That's not the issue," the board chair replied dismissively. "The issue is liability perception maintaining public confidence. Power means nothing if you can't protect what matters most." Catherine shot back. "If you're more concerned about perception than healing, you've forgotten why hospitals exist." The confrontation escalated when board members suggested hiring Vincent as consultant to provide legal cover. Catherine realized they wanted to sanitize authentic connection into approved programming. "He doesn't need your job," Catherine said, leaving the conference room. "He needs your respect for what he's accomplished, without your permission." Sophia's disappearance began with whispered conversation she overheard outside her room Tuesday afternoon. "Security escorted him out this morning," Nurse Thompson said. Administration finally realized how inappropriate the situation was. "What about the girl?" asked Nurse Kim. "She'll adjust. Children are resilient. Better to end this before she becomes dependent on unauthorized relationships." Sophia pressed against the wall, processing information that felt like watching her father die again. Another person she'd learned to trust, disappearing without warning. The logic made no sense to 8-year-old mind that had finally found someone who spoke her language of loss and hope. Vincent hadn't hurt or frightened her. He'd taught her that broken things could become beautiful, that silence didn't have to be permanent. Sophia waited until evening shift change created monitoring chaos, then slipped from her room in socks and hospital gown, moving through corridors with stealth small children master, when desperation motivates escape. The construction zones provided hiding places for someone who weighed 63 pounds and could squeeze through temporary barrier gaps. She'd explored these areas during restless wanderings, discovering abandoned rooms where renovation projects created refuge from medical supervision. She found sanctuary in an unused patient room scheduled for demolition, curling beneath paint-splattered drop cloth while fighting tears that felt like admitting defeat. Vincent learned about Sophia's disappearance when Catherine called at 9:47 p.m. "She's gone," Catherine said without preamble. "Security searched every floor. Police brought dogs. She's not anywhere they can find." Vincent understood immediately. Sophia hadn't run from the hospital. She'd run toward something representing safety. Children didn't disappear randomly. They sought refuge where they'd experienced comfort. "I'm coming," Vincent said. "They won't let you help. You're banned. They'll arrest you for trespassing. Then we won't use front doors." They entered through construction access on the west side, climbing through window openings where renovation had removed glass but not installed security. Vincent moved with purpose, his maintenance experience guiding them through dark corridors. "Sophia," Vincent called softly. "It's Vincent. You're not in trouble. We're worried and want to make sure you're safe." The answer came as barely audible whisper. "Vincent, did they send you away forever?" They followed the small voice to its source, finding Sophia curled beneath canvas in a room that smelled of dust and abandoned hopes. "I didn't leave by choice," Vincent said, kneeling without removing protective barriers she'd constructed. "They told me I couldn't see you because they have rules about who gets to help with healing." "I heard them talking," Sophia whispered. "They said you were gone, and I would adjust because children are resilient." Catherine knelt beside Vincent, heartbreaking, as she realized her daughter had overheard institutional dismissal of their relationship. "I don't care about their rules," Vincent said firmly. "I care about you, and nothing they say can change that." "Will you leave again?" Sophia asked. Catherine spoke before Vincent could answer. "No. We're family now, and families don't abandon each other just because other people don't understand. We'll find a way to stay together that doesn't depend on hospital permission." Vincent reached out slowly, offering his hand without demanding acceptance. "I promise. We'll stay together, because that's what families do. They choose each other and protect each other, and help each other heal." Sophia emerged and threw her arms around Vincent's neck, her small body shaking with relief. Catherine wrapped her arms around both, creating shelter against institutions that valued protocols over people. They sat together in the abandoned room, while construction dust settled three people who'd found each other through shared understanding and chosen each other through commitment to love rather than logic, to healing rather than hiding. The hospital could make rules, but it couldn't regulate love. The media could generate controversy, but it couldn't destroy connection. Their family had survived its first institutional challenge and emerged stronger. Catherine Chen Morrison had built Technosphere by understanding leverage, identifying pressure points where strategic force could move immovable objects. Standing before Mercy General's board at 8 a.m. Wednesday morning, she deployed every weapon in her arsenal. Gentleman Catherine began voice-carrying steel that commanded international respect and maternal fury from watching institutions harm her child while claiming protection. "You have 24 hours to decide what matters more, your liability policies or my daughter's life." 8 men whose combined authority controlled thousands of patients had never faced negotiation with someone wielding Catherine's financial influence and desperate maternal determination. Ms. Chen Morrison began. "Dr. Webb, the board chairman, we understand your emotional investment, but protocols exist to protect patients from—" "Protect from healing," Catherine interrupted. "From speaking for the first time in 8 months, your protocols failed. Your specialists quit. A janitor with paper did what your degrees couldn't," gave her back her voice. Catherine opened her briefcase, removing legal documents representing months of preparation by expensive attorneys specializing in institutional negligence and patient rights violations. "Vincent Cruz will be reinstated with full access to my daughter," Catherine announced. "He will receive formal consultant position with compensation, legal protection, and institutional support for approaches that succeeded where your training failed." The mathematics were devastating. Catherine's support represented 30% of Mercy General's operating budget. Losing her contributions would force immediate cuts, staff reductions, institutional decline that destroyed careers. This creates precedent for unqualified individuals to provide therapeutic services. Dr. Williams protested. This creates precedent for qualified human beings to provide healing through lived experience, rather than academic credentials, Catherine replied. Vincent Cruz understands my daughter's pain because he carries identical wounds, not because he memorized textbooks written by people who never experienced comparable loss. Vincent received notification through legal documents that felt surreal after public humiliation and media scrutiny. Therapeutic life experience consultant carried annual salary 3 times his janitor wages, formal recognition of his contribution and institutional protection. I don't need this much money, Vincent told Catherine when they met. You're saving lives, Catherine replied simply. That's worth more than I can afford to pay. The resolution provided framework for Vincent's continued relationship while establishing protocols that satisfied regulators. Yet the most important healing continued outside institutional approval in quiet conversations, where broken people helped each other remember that survival and living weren't the same thing. Vincent's first official day began with Sophia greeting him in the lobby, her face lighting with joy that felt like sunrise after endless darkness. You came back, she said. I promised, Vincent replied, kneeling with gentle respect. Family keeps promises even when keeping them requires fighting rules that don't make sense. The Paper Crane Foundation's headquarters occupied a converted warehouse in the Arts District, its exposed brick and polished concrete creating warmth that welcomed people carrying invisible wounds rather than intimidating them with medical authority. We believe healing happens when broken people help other broken people remember they're not alone. Vincent read from the mission statement above the entrance. The Foundation defied conventional models by prioritizing lived experience over academic credentials, matching trauma survivors with peer counselors who'd navigated similar losses rather than assigning patients to specialists whose expertise came from textbooks. Every counselor has survived what they're helping others process, Maria Santos explained to visiting reporters. We don't treat trauma symptoms. We witness each other's pain and share what we've learned about carrying it forward. The first family arrived within a week. Jennifer Walsh, whose 7-year-old son Michael had witnessed his father die in construction accident, and stopped speaking about safety danger or possibility that people he loved might disappear. Vincent sat with Michael in the origami room, hands moving through familiar motions while speaking directly about loss without euphemisms that protected adults while confusing children. My daughter died 4 years ago, Vincent told Michael. She was 6 like you. Her name was Isabella, and she loved making paper animals almost as much as asking questions about everything. Michael's attention focused with surprising intensity as Vincent began folding red paper into crane form, each movement deliberate and meditative. Sometimes not talking feels safer than talking. Vincent continued. I stopped talking to most people for almost 4 years because talking made me remember things that hurt too much. Does talking still hurt? Michael asked. First question he'd asked any adult since witnessing his father's fall. Sometimes. But not talking hurt worse because it made me forget good things along with bad things. Your daddy wouldn't want you to forget all the good parts just to avoid the sad parts. 3 weeks later, Michael spoke to his mother about missing his father. Not about trauma symptoms, but about good memories and his fear that forgetting details might mean losing connection with love that death couldn't destroy. By year's end, the Foundation had served 83 families with success rates that challenged conventional models and attracted attention from researchers interested in peer counseling approaches that succeeded through human connection rather than clinical intervention. Thanksgiving arrived with November light filtering through Catherine's penthouse windows, illuminating dining room where formal settings had been replaced by paper plates decorated with the origami turkeys. Sophia had folded with increasing complexity. "I invited Maria and her kids," Catherine announced while basting turkey Vincent had taught her to prepare with Puerto Rican seasonings. "Foundation families shouldn't be empty on holidays." Vincent smiled at her automatic inclusion of foundation families, understanding that Catherine's business instincts had evolved into maternal instincts, extending protection to anyone connected with their healing community. When guests arrived, Catherine's penthouse filled with languages, laughter, and chaos that comes from bringing together people who'd survived trauma and chosen to help each other heal. Children spoke Spanish and English interchangeably, while adults shared stories about traditions they'd left behind and new customs they were creating. "What are you thankful for?" became ritual that went around the table, creating space for both grief and gratitude to coexist. Vincent's gratitude surprised everyone. For learning that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's choice, sometimes it's accident. Sometimes it's just people brave enough to care about each other's pain without trying to fix it. Catherine's response revealed transformation. Money couldn't purchase, for discovering that the most important business is building relationships that survive loss and grow stronger through challenge. Sophia's gratitude carried wisdom trauma sometimes bestows on children. For angels who come disguised as janitors and teach broken people how to fold their hearts back together. Christmas planning began that evening as Sophia insisted on decorating with paper ornaments rather than expensive decorations. Vincent taught complex folding patterns, while Catherine learned to thread needles despite manicured nails not designed for delicate work. "I want to give origami gifts to foundation families," Sophia announced. Something different for each person folded special for them. Christmas morning arrived with snow falling, creating backdrop for gift exchange, emphasizing creativity over expense. Vincent's gift to Sophia was engineering masterpiece. Crane with moving wings that actually flapped when manipulated. "It's like us," Sophia said, testing wing mechanisms. Separate pieces that work better together, making something that can really fly. Catherine's gift surprised everyone. Legal documents establishing college funds for foundation families' children. Scholarship programs honoring Thomas's memory while providing practical support. Their first year of traditions ended with recognition that healing happened through accumulated moments rather than dramatic revelations. Quiet conversations over shared meals, patient instruction, teaching life skills alongside artistic techniques expanded definition of home, including everyone brave enough to choose love over fear. 5 years later, 13-year-old Sophia Chen Cruz stood before trauma counselors from 18 states, her presence commanding attention. That had nothing to do with wealth and everything to do with wisdom earned through surviving loss and choosing healing. "Most people think recovery means going back to who you were before tragedy struck," Sophia said, "but healing isn't about returning. It's about becoming someone new who can carry love forward instead of carrying only grief." Vincent watched from the conference room's back, his role as foundation director bringing him full circle from hospital. Janitor who'd risked his job to nationally recognized expert whose methods were studied by universities nationwide. The first crane Vincent folded wasn't perfect. Sophia continued holding up the slightly asymmetrical bird that had traveled with her from hospital room to foundation offices. One wing was shorter, the head tilted unusually, the body compressed where his hands pressed too hard. She paused, allowing the audience to absorb imperfection that somehow felt more beautiful than manufactured precision. But those imperfections were exactly what made it perfect for me. They proved a real person had taken time to create something beautiful specifically for my pain, that someone understood brokenness could become beauty if treated with patience and intention. The foundation had grown beyond Vincent's original vision. 23 locations across 12 states served thousands annually, with documented success rates that challenged traditional models while providing cost-effective alternatives to expensive programs. Catherine entered carrying legal documents formalizing Vincent's adoption as Sophia's second parent. Paperwork that had taken 2 years through courts unfamiliar with unconventional family structures, but ultimately recognized love transcended traditional categories. "We're really family now," Sophia whispered after the ceremony. "We were always family," Vincent replied. "Now we just have legal permission to admit it officially." Vincent's transformation from janitor to internationally recognized expert represented hope that resonated with foundation participants who arrived feeling worthless and discovered their experiences qualified them to guide others through similar journeys. As evening settled over headquarters, Vincent stood in the origami room, where dozens worked on projects ranging from simple cranes to complex architectural models. Sophia approached with her latest creation, elaborate dragon whose wings moved when touched. "Look what's possible when broken people help each other remember how to fly," she said, activating mechanisms that created flight illusion through careful attention to physics and imagination. Vincent watched the paper dragon move with fluid grace, understanding that Sophia had become the bridge between his engineering background and her artistic vision, creating something neither could have imagined alone. The documentary From Janitor to Lifesaver. The paper crane story won awards at international festivals, generating global attention for foundation methods that challenged conventional therapeutic models, while demonstrating effectiveness researchers struggled to replicate. Vincent's book about peer trauma counseling became required reading in social work programs. Paper Cranes: How Broken People Heal Each Other provided practical guidance while sharing philosophical framework that prioritized connection over clinical procedures. The Foundation's influence extended beyond service to policy advocacy. Vincent testified before committees considering bills recognizing peer counseling as legitimate therapeutic intervention worthy of insurance coverage. "Peer counselors aren't replacing licensed therapists," Vincent clarified during testimony. "We're filling gaps academic training can't address. Authentic witness shared experience and hope that comes from seeing others who've survived similar circumstances." Catherine's technology initiatives developed platforms enabling trauma survivors in remote areas to access foundation services, through secure connections extending geographic reach to previously underserved communities. Sophia's acceptance to architecture school generated scholarship offers from universities competing to recruit students whose creative vision combined technical skill with social consciousness, promising to influence future building design toward human well-being priorities. "I want to design healing spaces," Sophia explained during interviews. Portfolio demonstrating concepts inspired by foundation principles. Buildings fostering connection rather than isolation environments, supporting trauma recovery through carefully considered relationships and materials chosen for psychological comfort. As Vincent addressed Lincoln Center audience during post-screening discussion, he reflected on transformation from folding single crane for traumatized child to international movement touching thousands of lives. "We started with one little girl who couldn't speak and one janitor who'd forgotten how to hope," Vincent said. "We've learned that broken doesn't mean worthless. It means experienced in survival, qualified to guide others through darkness." The applause felt like recognition of collective understanding, that healing happened through community rather than isolation, through shared wisdom rather than professional distance, through love that multiplied when extended. Vincent Cruz stood in the Foundation's memorial garden on crisp October morning, surrounded by thousands of paper cranes sent by families whose lives had been touched by peer counseling programs, proving healing accelerated when broken people helped each other remember they weren't alone. Each crane represented life-touched hope, Restored healing begun through recognition that survival qualified people to guide others through similar darkness toward light that seemed impossible during trauma's initial devastation. I learned that angels don't always have wings, Vincent said, addressing anniversary gathering. Sometimes they have paper cranes. Sometimes they have broken hearts that choose to mend others. Sometimes they're disguised as exactly what you think you don't need. Sophia approached through garden pathways lined with origami installations, her architectural portfolio under one arm, while carrying elaborate sculpture representing her final high school project. "Graduation speech is tomorrow," Sophia reminded Vincent. "Are you ready?" "I'm ready to tell them what you taught me about folding broken pieces into beautiful wholes," Sophia replied. Catherine emerged, carrying legal documents formalizing Sophia's scholarship program. Endowment providing educational support for trauma survivors whose academic dreams might otherwise be derailed by circumstances making traditional preparation difficult. Vincent's reflection about foundation growth often returned to Sophia's early observation. Broken things can become beautiful when someone treats them with patience and intention. 7 years proved trauma survivors possessed unique qualifications for helping others navigate similar journeys. Not despite their wounds, but because of wisdom earned through survival. Sophia's valedictory speech drew standing ovation from audience, including trauma specialists, foundation supporters, classmates, and medical professionals, whose understanding of recovery had been influenced by witnessing young women transform devastating loss into purposeful contribution. "My dad used to say the most important buildings bring people together rather than keeping them apart," Sophia said. "The foundation taught me healing happens the same way. Not through isolation, but through connection. Not through hiding from pain, but through sharing it with people who understand." She held up Vincent's original crane. Imperfect bird that had traveled from hospital room to graduation ceremony. Its flaws preserved as evidence that authentic love came through human hands rather than machine precision. "This crane isn't perfect," Sophia observed, "but those imperfections were exactly what made it perfect for me. They proved someone with real experience had taken time to create something beautiful specifically for my pain." As ceremony concluded, Vincent watched Sophia embrace classmates while maintaining awareness that her achievement represented more than academic success. It demonstrated possibility that trauma survivors could transcend circumstances that might otherwise define limitations. The paper cranes in Memorial Garden stirred in autumn breeze as families gathered for celebration. Each folded creation representing prayer that broken things could fly again when treated with patience, intention, and love that recognized beauty in imperfection. "Sometimes when you think your story is over," Vincent said during evening reflection, "that's exactly when the most beautiful chapter begins." The foundation families showed me that broken people helping other broken people remember they're not alone is how healing really happens. One folded crane at a time, one witnessed pain at a time, one shared hope at a time. The Paper Crane Foundation continues proving that ordinary materials become extraordinary beauty when handled by people who understand transformation through experience rather than theory, who offer authentic witness rather than clinical distance, who recognize healing accelerates when survivors help each other remember their worth and possibility. If this story touched you the way it touched me, if it reminded you that healing often comes through the most unexpected hands, please don't let its message end here. Share this with someone who needs to remember that their darkest chapter isn't their final one. Hit that like button if you believe in second chances and subscribe to our channel for more stories that prove love finds a way even in the most broken places. Ring the notification bell so you never miss a story that could change someone's life. Because sometimes the most beautiful families aren't born, they're built by hearts brave enough to heal together. Sometimes the greatest teachers are those who've walked through the same darkness you're walking through now. And sometimes when you think your story is over, that's exactly when the most beautiful chapter begins. The Paper Crane Foundation continues Vincent's work today, proving that broken pieces can become something beautiful when folded with love, patience, and understanding that we're all just walking each other home through the shared experience of being human in a world that sometimes breaks our hearts, but always offers opportunities for them to heal again through connection, service, and hope that multiplies when shared with others who need to remember they're not alone.